Hello, hello. This is going to be a tutorial on how fights actually work in Slay the Spire 2 and what your general strategies should be. So if you feel like you're taking too much damage in fights, this is a video for you. Just to prove my pedigree a little bit, I am uh, I have some hours on quite all the characters, and I would say I'm above average. I don't think I'm the best in the world or anything. But if you're struggling on these lower ascensions, these rules I have are certainly going to help you. So most fights, most enemies will follow a cyclical pattern. This uh, they can vary slightly in various ways, but for the most part, you can assume until you're proven wrong that an enemy is going to do thing one, and then next turn it's going to do thing two. The turn after that it's going to do thing three, and then it's just going to cycle. Sometimes it's varied. Sometimes there's only two different things it does and goes back and forth. Sometimes there are four things. Sometimes, for example, the cultist, they just buff themselves with ritual, so they get in strength every turn, and then they just hit you over and over again. So there are exceptions, but for the most part, this is the average enemy. It goes through a cycle of three or four things, and if you have a basic understanding of what those three and four things are, then you can plan the fight a lot better, and you can do a lot better. So let's take that mindset and let's apply it to this Nibbit fight. So the Nibbit is going to do a strong hit on turn one. It is then going to do a weaker hit and shield itself. And it is then going to buff itself and do 0 damage. And then it's just going to go back to turn one. And it's just going to cycle like that. And now that we know what it's going to do, we can make our game plan and we can plan out the whole fight before we even started. So on turn one, it's going to hit us for a large amount. And on that turn, we are going to block. On turn three, it's not going to hit us at all. Right? So this is our offense turn. We're going to hit on this turn. And on turn two, it's going to hit us weakly. So we're going to do a little bit of both. And now that we've understood that and we've made our game plan, let's see how it works out inside of the fight. So when it hits hard, we block. In a perfect world, we could block more, but we didn't draw it. Now it's hitting us weakly, and so we're blocking. And now we have a choice. Are we bashing or are we doing 2 strikes? Now 2 strikes is more damage than this bash. But remember our game plan. We're on turn 2. Next turn is our offense turn, because he's buffing next turn. So all the strikes that we draw, we are going to play. And so it being vulnerable next turn is very good. Okay, a bit of a bad draw. We only got 2 strikes. But you can see that those 2 strikes made up the difference in damage from bashing last turn. And now it's just going to cycle. This is its big hit. So we're going to block as much as possible. So this turn is unfortunate because our game plan wants to block on this turn. But we're only able to block 5. So we need to make the best out of this situation. And the way to do that is to make the most progress and hopefully give ourselves the best chance to kill next turn. So before, in order to give us the best chance of doing damage next turn, we bashed because the vulnerable next turn was worth more. But in this instance, it is down to 18 health. So if we bash, it goes down to 11, and a strike with vulnerable would deal 9. And we would have to draw 2 strikes to kill it next turn. But if we strike twice, then it goes down to 6 health, and then we only have to draw 1 strike next turn to actually kill it. So that's what we're going to do. And this damage is unfortunate, but sometimes it's the luck of the draw. So unfortunately, we did get unlucky in that fight, and we took a total of 6 damage after the healing from Burning Blood. But since we quantified our game plan, and we know that it is possible to full block on this turn, we just didn't draw it, we're able to understand that we were unlucky to have taken this damage. And understanding when you're unlucky and how much that unlucky costs you is a huge part of how you end up planning out what you're doing, right? If you understand things like this, then you know that once you get here, can you smith or can you upgrade? Or do you have to rest? Right? And eventually you're going to understand what you're expected to lose per fight, what is the maximum really possible realistically, and what the minimum realistically is. And that will help you make certain decisions. Okay, so now we have a setup strike in our deck, and that's going to change certain things. So we're going to now plan around these health totals and what our deck does. So our deck is currently really good at dealing 6 damage, right? It occasionally can deal more, but it's very good at dealing 6 damage. So if we killed these things while only doing 6 damage every time, how much energy would it take to kill all of these, right? If we use strike to deal 100% of our damage, how much would it take? This would take 2 hits, so it would take 2 energy. This one would also take 2 hits, so 2 energy. And this one would take 5 hits. So we're now going to look at our deck and see if there's ways that we can skip some of those steps, right? So this thing takes 2 hits. Is there a way we could ever do it in 1? Same for this one. And this one takes 5. Is there a way that we can do it in less than 5? To do 10 damage, there's really no possible way to do it with less than 2 strikes. And obviously, that's also the same for 11. 2 strikes deal 12, and that's just the most efficient way we're ever going to kill this twig slime and this leaf slime is with 2 strikes. Our deck just doesn't do it better. But for the twig slime medium, it deals 27. And something we can do is we can bash and then set up strike while it's vulnerable, and that'll be a total of 18 damage. Because setup strike will do 10 in that example. And 18 takes it down to 9. And then if it's still vulnerable, a vulnerable strike will kill it. So we can kill this in potentially 4 energy and 3 cards instead of 5 energy and 5 cards. So that's an avenue that we should keep an eye out for as we play. Another possible avenue is if we set up strike and strike this once, it'll be a total of 15 damage. 15 would turn this into 12, and so then we can double strike it. So that would be 4 energy and 4 cards, which is also better than 5 energy and 5 cards. So those are 2 avenues that we're looking out for while killing this. And then for these 2 slimes, we're never doing better than 2 strikes. So we don't have to think as much for these 2. We just need to strike them when it happens to be convenient over the course of the fight. So, what do you do? In general, you should remove actors when it's easy. So, we can remove this actor with these 2 strikes, and then we don't have to worry about it for the rest of the fight. In general, simplifying the fight is the first step. We can also kill this one with these 2 strikes, and that will also simplify the fight. And which one you do is, I would say, more nebulous to what you value. In this instance, we can defend the 4, so getting the debuff is worse. In a world where I drew 5 strikes and I couldn't defend this 4, I would probably kill the 4 and just hope that this status doesn't do anything. But we don't have to take that risk, and that energy for the block would just be wasted anyways. So we are going to strike twice on this person and then defend on this. So one thing to keep in mind while we're planning out this fight is that next turn we can at most only defend once, because of these we're going to draw 5 of these cards, and it's possible we don't even draw this defend, right? We could draw these 5 cards, but at most we're only defending 5. And that's really unfortunate, because next turn all 3 of these are going to attack, because that's just what the cycle does for these enemies. We should plan on reducing that damage in other ways. So basically, if we're killing this one, then next turn we are going to be killing this one, because otherwise we just take more damage, right? There's no possible draw. The most damage we could do against the middle slime is bash plus setup strike, which would be 18 damage. So this one isn't dying. The most we can do is use 2 strikes to kill this one next turn. So we should act in a way that assumes that, and that extra makes us want to kill this one, because this one also attacks next turn. Right, so next turn, we know for sure that both of these will be dead, and that we're taking the damage, the difference of damage from this twig slime and the defend, right? So if you look through those 2 turns, we can either kill this one and get a status, or we can kill this one and block this damage. And then by the time it's the end of next turn, both of these will be dead anyways. So killing the one that's giving us the status is the only one that actually makes a difference after those 2 turns. So let's play out those 2 turns and then see what the turns look like afterwards. Our plan still is the same. We were looking out for these kinds of avenues to kill this more efficiently, but this is what we drew. and this twig slime isn't attacking, so there's really no thought process to this turn. And now we have lethal. Okay, so this is turn 2 of the third easy fight. We've gotten Inflame, so we have our strength at 2. And the Shrinker Beetle shrinks us on its first turn. But they closely cancel each other out. It makes things about the same. We have a few choices for this turn. We could double defend and strike once. We could defend and bash, or we could defend and strike 2 times. So, the thing that you should think about is, what do I have to draw next turn to kill this thing? And that matters because next turn it actually hits for more than 7. It's going to hit for 13 next turn. So if we can kill it next turn, even if the price is defending less, we'll have to not have to deal with that 13 attack next turn. So it could be worth taking some damage this turn if it has a higher chance of making the difference next turn. Let's look at what our possibilities are for next turn. So we are going to draw a setup strike and 3 extra cards. We'll also draw a defend, but we're just caring about what is necessary to possibly kill this next turn. So we're only looking at our offense. If we set up strike, it currently does 6 damage. And then let's say we draw a strike as well in one of these 3 cards, which is very reasonable draw. That strike will deal 7 damage. So 6 plus 7 is 13. So if we strike twice, it would be down to 12. So we could kill it with just a strike next turn. Is bash even better? If we bashed, it would take 7, and it would be down to 15. And we would still need to draw a setup strike and a strike. So it really doesn't make any difference if we bash or we double strike. So we're really just thinking, are we playing 2 defends or not? If we only strike once, we get it down to 17. And setup strike and a strike is a total of 13. So that wouldn't be enough to kill. So we are only going to defend once, and we're going to take 2 damage. But it sets us up to have an incredibly high chance to kill it next turn. So we drew the setup strike and the strike, and that kills it, because this will deal 6, and this will deal 7. 13 damage. And we can see that if we didn't kill this turn in that world where we double defended and it had 5 more health, we actually wouldn't kill. And we can at most defend twice. And so we're taking 3 damage this turn. But since we took 2 damage last turn, we're not taking this 3 damage this turn. So we actually healed by taking that 2 damage last turn. And we overall healed for the fight. So this is our first advanced fight. In Slay the Spire 2, in Act 1, the first 3 fights are what are called easy fights. And then everything afterwards is an advanced fight. you got these three fights, which are roughly the same power level, right? This, and this. They were all roughly the same power level. But now this guy, he is a a higher power level fight than this one. But this one isn't stronger. It's the same as this one. And why is that important? Because this fight is just as hard as this fight. This fight is just as hard as this fight. This fight is just as hard as this fight. But by the time you're here, you're a little bit stronger than you were here. By the time you're here, you're even more stronger than you were here. By the time you're here, you're way stronger than you were here. So this is actually the hardest advanced fight of this act. On average. You know, they're not all perfectly created equal or anything. But that's how you should think about it. So we are going to approach this fight as though it is scary. Even though it's only the fourth one, it's just as hard as the eighth one. And we are at our weakest right now. First, let's think about what these enemies do for this fight. Basically, I'm not going to go into super details, but basically this thing hits a little bit harder. The middle one hits a little bit harder. Then both of the outside ones hit really hard compared to the middle one. And then the middle one hits really hard compared to the outside ones. And then I'm pretty sure at that point it cycles, but hopefully you're not in this fight that long because these guys hurt. For this one in particular, you know, this one does 3 more damage this turn, but next turn these two do so much more damage than this one that I want to get rid of these outside ones first, if I can. So how do we do that? There's a few ways. First thing we're going to do is we're going to think about what we could do this turn. So we could set up strike. If we set up strike this 12 and then dismantle, that only deals 10. And the first time it takes damage, it only loses 1 instead. So this would be 1 damage, and this would be 10 for a total of 11. So that doesn't kill any of these. So the only chance we actually have to kill any of these is to do all 3 attacks. Now let's look at our turn next turn. So if you look at this, you're not going to know exactly what you draw, but something you can look at is there are 8 total cards in my draw pile, and 4 of them are strikes. So on average, I'm going to have 2.5 strikes, right? And at the very least, I'm going to have 1. Right? Even if I draw Bash, Defend, and Flame, the 5th card is going to be a strike. So the things to keep in mind is we're going to probably have 2 strikes. There's a decent chance we'll have 3. And we're guaranteed to at least have 1. Does that change any of our math? Well, we could set up strike and dismantle this one. And then it would take a total of 10. So it would be down to 5 health. And then next turn, we could strike it because we're guaranteed that 1 strike. And then with 2 energy, we could try and kill this. But if you look at this deck, that 2 energy could never kill this, right? So if we do that avenue, we are tanking this 10 strength hit that it's going to hit us with. which we really don't want to do. If we just full clear this guy and we take 9 because we're not blocking at all, then next turn we'll have 3 energy to kill this little inkling. And in order to do that, we would have to draw bash and a strike, or 3 strikes. And those aren't awful odds, but they're not guaranteed. For example, I could draw defend, and flame, and 2 strikes. And then this wouldn't die next turn, and I'm tanking 10. So that's not great either. The other avenue is we have this potion. And I think a lot of people, they're afraid to ever use a potion in a normal fight. But remember, this is the hardest advanced fight. Right? They only get easier from here. So if we find a good use of it in this fight, it is perfectly fine to use a potion now. Some potions are like the +2 strength potion or the +2 dexterity potion. Potions like that have lasting effects and that last a long time. Those are more coveted because elite fights are typically longer, so you're going to get more value out of saving those for elite fights. But potions like this, 20 damage now is going to be 20 damage later. And in theory, we're going to be better at doing damage later. So it's actually going to be worse later because this doesn't scale in any way. So I'm thinking we set up strike. Well, it really doesn't matter which one we do. We set up strike this one so that we can fire potion it. And then we're either double defending, so we take 0 this turn, or we're single defending and taking 4, but we get to strike this and increase our chances of not taking 10 next turn. Because it's if we strike this once and it's at 11 without its buff, there is no possible hand that doesn't kill it next turn. Right? The worst possible hand is bash, defend, and flame, and a strike. And it'll take all of our energy, but we can bash strike this in that instance and kill it. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to set up strike this. Again, it doesn't really matter because it's all dealing 1 anyways. And then we're going to set this up to die next turn and block once. And we take 4. But we drew the good way to kill, actually, on top of that. So we're absolutely striking twice. And now we have a choice. Do we inflame, or do we defend so we don't take 3? So the first thing we do is we look at our deck. We're going to draw 2 strikes and 2 mystery cards next turn. And there is a decent chance that one of them will be a strike. So, if we draw 3 strikes next turn, does that kill? The first one will do 1, it'll be at 13, and then the other 2 strikes will only deal 12, so it will live with 1 health. But if we inflame, then these will deal 8. So the first one will do 1, it'll be 13, and then we have 2 8s. And so we'll actually kill next turn if we draw 1 strike if we inflame. And remember, this inkling is doing 10 next turn. That's a lot of damage. So we're going to play to that win con. Another reason it's good is because, let's say, we don't draw another strike. That means we have to draw a defend, right? So even if we don't draw the strikes and it doesn't make the difference, we'll draw 2 defends and we'll full block it anyways. But there's a world where we draw 4 attacks, right? So these are both attacks, these two mystery cards that we're getting next turn. And then we would only be able to defend once. And so by taking 3 damage this turn, we negate the possibility of taking 5 next turn. Okay, so in this instance, we would have full blocked, and we would have not killed either way. But it's better to have taken the chance, because in a world where, again, we drew 4 attacks, which we almost did, we would have actually taken more damage. And now we can just do that. So why does this matter so much? Why are we nitpicking our fights this much to just save a couple damage here and there? Well, this is a game about snowballing your advantages. So I went this way just for the video to get more fights in. Normally I would probably go this way because we get 2 fires and elite out of it. Right, so let's say there's a world where I took 8, and then I took 6, and then I took 8 again, and then I didn't use my potion here, so that guy with that 10 damage hit, and instead of taking 1 damage, I took like probably more than 10, because I also don't kill a guy. So let's say I take like 14, right? And then let's say here I take 10, just conceivable numbers, ballpark numbers. I would be at a total of 8, 16, 22, 36. I would have taken 42 damage. So I would be under half health by the time I get to this bonfire. And I have an elite coming up. And I have 38 health. And, an elite on average probably won't deal 38 health. But especially if it's Frog Parasite and you get unlucky, this thing could easily take like 50 if it's specifically the Frog Parasite. Or maybe you get Statue Effigy and your first turn is like all defense. So you don't get that extra turn to deal damage, right? So if you're unlucky, an elite could do like 40 to 50. And you have to take that into account. Which means that, you upgrading here is really risky. Maybe you do it anyways, right? Maybe you're like, I feel like my only way out is to Hail Mary and get strong enough. But in another universe where we took 6, and then we took 0, and then we healed 4, right? And then we took 1. And then, let's say this is unlucky, right? Let's say we still took 10. In that universe, we took a total of 13 damage. So we're sitting at 67 while we're here. And remember, if we're unlucky, we take like 50. So this is going to be an upgrade now. And then you might think like, well, it's one upgrade. Let's say we take 50 here. Well, if you get an upgrade, you're less likely to take 50 here because you're actually stronger from the upgrade. But also, let's say we don't get unlucky, and with the upgrade, we only take 20. Right? That's very reasonable with an upgrade. Now we're at 47 while we're here. And then these fights, right? If we're looking at our numbers for advanced fights, we're taking 1 to, probably like 8. It's more reasonable number. Right? So on average we're taking like 5 from each of these. that's 15, and we're at 47. So this can also be an upgrade, and then that upgrade makes it so that these are only really 3 damage, and so then you're at this thing with like half health, and against Phantom, depending on your deck, maybe you need the health to win, but maybe an upgrade will help you kill it faster, and 40 is enough. So these small differences end up snowballing you into just being absurdly more strong than you would have been if we had to rest here. And so min maxing these fights, especially the early ones, where your deck is mostly the starter deck. It's really worth your time. Once you're in Act 2 or 3, your deck is this you completely new thing, right? It's like chess openings, right? It's really worth having good chess openings, but after about 7 turns, that game's never happened before. So you're pioneering a new game at that point. And the same is kind of true for Slay the Spire, right? These first few fights are really worth getting really good at. That's my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to check out the stream. The link will be in the description and all that good stuff. And I hope this helps y'all get more value and have more fun ultimately in this game.